helping us to realize that what we do now will be felt by those who come after us, that they should not inherit the sins of which we are the legatees of our forefathers.
Couple dozen years ago, I became very interested in genealogy. I have traced a large number of my ancestors and even led a service on the topic some years ago. Though my ancestry is not much varied racially, it includes people with quite a varied relationship to oppression issues. One of my colonial ancestors learned Native American languages so as to negotiate equitable purchase of lands, but another participated in a rebellion aimed at seizing more lands from Native Americans than the government was allowing. One of my ancestors led the Quakers into opposing slavery, but another listed people as property in his will, specifying which heir was to receive each enslaved person. I have always endeavored to live my life without mistreating anyone and take as one of my mottos the words of Paul the Apostle: "There is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, for you all are all one." But this still leaves wrongs left over from the past. Though I have not inherited any land or fortune from the displacement of Native Americans or from the profits of enslaved people, my only inheritance has been a few $100s from the sale of my parents' personal effects. I have received much of value that has been inaccessible to those with other ancestries, and I seek ways to compensate. What I have received of most value from my ancestors, my family, my mentor, is educational opportunity. And this is what I most seek to offer in payment. For Native Americans, I have strongly supported the archaeology which has uncovered their past civilizations, and I have opposed further encroachment on their sacred lands. We need, as a nation, to further strengthen their legal protections and properly include their achievements in our history lessons. For young people of any race, economic status, or gender, I have offered tutoring, and I have donated to scholarship funds. We need, as a nation, to guarantee to everyone as much educational opportunity as can be of benefit to them. And we need to guarantee every adult citizen equal opportunity to participate in our democracy. There is much more that can be done, but these are where my passions lie. Let us now join together in this worship service to learn from one another and encourage one another.
Good morning. My name is Annette Bringen, and I'm a member of the board. It is my pleasure to welcome you to Mission Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation today. Here, no single doctrine or creed prevails. We are all coming at truth from different paths. We gather together across different identities, experiences, beliefs to affirm and promote the inherent worth of every person. Here, despite all the fear and pain in the world, we choose love. In fact, we choose love because of the fear and pain in the world. Here, kindness and curiosity express our commitment to creatively empowering diversity and inspiring love in the world. Maybe you are here for the first time. If so, we are very glad to welcome you. If you would like to receive our weekly emailed newsletter, please send an email to welcome@mpuuc.org. That email address will be posted in today's chat, along with a link to our weekly newsletter. We encourage you to attend any upcoming events that speak to you. We also use the chat to share joys and concerns, which are significant personal milestones, which will be read aloud later in the service. I have a few special announcements to call your attention to this morning. The annual Yom HaShoah Holocaust Remembrance Service will be held this evening at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. Advanced registration is required, and the link is in the order of service. Our congregation will be installing Reverend Greg Ward on Sunday, April 25th at 1 p.m. over Zoom. For more information, see this week's newsletter, The Week on the Peak. Mission Peak will be jointly ordaining Robert Alex Jensen on June 6th. For more information or to donate to help with the costs of the ordination, see The Week on the Peak. The annual UUA meeting will be held virtually June 23rd to 27th this year. Registration is $200 and assistance is available for delegates. If you are interested in being a delegate for Mission Peak UU, please contact Allison by Tuesday. The board will be selecting delegates at our meeting on Wednesday evening. If you hear or see something in this morning's service that inspires you or makes you laugh or brings you hope, please share it on social media or just tell a friend. We are trying to start a wave of love and justice with every gathering. Thank you for joining us.
Please join me in unison reading of our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice to remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because we are all one family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, to live lives full of goodness and love because that is how we will become the best people we can be. Now it's your turn.
Hi, I'm Newty, and this story is a composite of experiences and conversations. It didn't happen just exactly as written. It's called Bubby. You two are smart. If you were boys, you'd need to be doctors, but for girls, that's a waste. Who'd hire a woman doctor? She chuckled at the idea. The year was 1964, and we'd never even heard of a real-life woman doctor. We all smiled with Bubby at the absurdity of the idea. Bubby was my best friend Beth's grandma. From my first visit as Bethy's friend, Bubby had greeted me with a big hug and permission to call her Bubby, just like the rest of the family. And they'd all treated me like that, like a family member, until a few days later, when Beth and I came home from a barbecue, and Bubby heard me say that I had a real crush on Nathan Cohen. That prompted a lecture. Girls your age, you have to be planning for your future. Have you chosen a career for after college? I'll be a teacher like my mother, I said without enthusiasm, because teaching was my parents' only idea of a respectable job for the spinster they were sure that I'd become. But Bubby didn't know that, so she nodded approvingly and said, "Smart girl. What about you, Bethy?" Beth grinned. "I'm going to be a fashion designer like Coco Chanel." "That's ridiculous. Both of you girls need to teach public school. It pays bupkis. That means the men don't compete for jobs with you. And there's always a big teacher shortage because of that. They'll take anybody with a degree, even Jews. So what you'll do is you'll become English teachers. That way, you'll always be able to support yourself no matter where in the world you have to go. I don't even like school, Beth protested, and I sure don't want to teach in one. That's foolishness. Bubby was trying not to seem angry, but it was clear she didn't like dealing with stupid comments during a serious conversation. She was so upset that she was holding her hands together so they wouldn't shake. I'll make you a deal, she said. You can be a fashion designer as soon as you show me that Coco Chanel's real last name is Leibowitz. Beth began, but Bubby silenced her. Forget it. You can't win this one, Bethy. The powers that be aren't going to let one of us have a chance at a hoity-toity job like that. Jews get hired to either sew clothes or sell clothes. They don't even hire Jewish-looking models. But I guess that's okay, because becoming well-known would be like tattooing a big target right in the middle of your forehead. Beth started balancing back and forth from one foot to the other, trying to burn up her visibly rising tension, but it apparently wasn't working. She snapped at her mom, "Can I go outside? I've heard this lecture before from you." But Mrs. Renino shushed her as Bubby continued. "Next time they come pounding on our door in the dark of the night to drag us off, you'll want to be somebody, some nobody, like a teacher or a bookkeeper or a legal secretary who could just melt out of sight without anybody recognizing them or even noticing." "Bubby," I asked, "do you really think they could do that? I mean, pound on your doors and take you away here in America?" You see, by then my family had joined the United Church of Christ. So I'd read the parts of the Bible where Jesus explained to his disciples that they weren't leaving the Jewish faith, they were reforming it. In other words, from Reverend Schatz's point of view, if Jesus and his mom were both Jews, then God must think Jews were pretty cool. So the idea that Americans would cart them off and kill them was just dumb. "Sweetheart," she said, "for the last 4,000 years, we Jews have been the scapegoats for everything that has ever gone wrong, from plagues to economic depressions to wars, and before that, when the pharaohs had a labor shortage, they enslaved us. The Russian czars killed hundreds of thousands of us in the pogroms. In the Spanish Inquisition, they used to burn us to death in public if we didn't renounce and convert to Christianity. And when the Pope couldn't pray the bubonic plague away, he blamed it on us and said God would end it if they managed to kill all of us off. Now, each time a few of us escaped, but they weren't the famous ones that people could recognize. They were the ones like us that mostly kept to themselves and blended in, like the way your mama always puts up Christmas lights and Easter flags so that we're not the only house on the block that doesn't have them. And that's why when Bethy's Zeta Ben got to America, he shortened his name, which had been Squininanek. I hope I pronounced that right. By cutting the first and the last parts off of it. So now it's Renino. He hoped that people would assume that we were Italians, maybe non-practicing Catholics, and that maybe next time the hunt was on, we wouldn't still be on the kill list. You know, when I found out about it, that's when I realized that this was a man who'd do anything it took to keep his family safe. And that's why I decided to marry him. "Because you loved him?" I asked hopefully. "No, but I loved the idea about not having to worry whether my family would be attacked just because we told people we had a name and it happened to be Jewish." "Well, I'm not going to stay in hiding for the rest of my life," Beth insisted. "I'm going to be rich and I'm going to be famous and I'm going to make so much money they won't be able to touch any of us. You just wait. You'll all be really proud of me." Bubby got quiet. "I'd be prouder if you stay alive." As to money, well, my family made a reasonable amount of that, but when they came for us, they didn't let us go to the bank. Even if we'd stuffed a bag full of cash, which we didn't have in the house, it wouldn't have done us a bit of good because once they had us, they stole everything. They even stole our eyeglasses and our shoes. Well, then why do you and Mom keep those bags in your closet? Bags? I asked. Beth spun to face me. They each have an overnight bag packed with changes of clothes and cash and fake IDs. You know, that's illegal. You guys are such hypocrites, she yelled. And what good is it going to do you? If you have 3 days worth of clean clothes, if the Nazis are on your doorstep, you're just so stupid. Mrs. Renino looked toward her mother, who looked even paler than before. I don't know where to get fake IDs anymore, Bubby said quietly. But when she came to smuggle me out of the Warsaw Ghetto, if Mrs. Lindemann hadn't bought a fake ID for me, along with some nice-looking, clean clothes, I'd be dead now, just like my whole family and all my cousins and all my friends. But if the Gestapo comes to Burbank to grab you, Beth went on, sarcasm dripping from every word, what makes you think they won't steal your stuff? The night they come back again, having those bags would be useless, Bobby agreed. But if we find out the night before, Mrs. Renino added quietly, we might have a chance to get away. If we don't have to take any time to get money or maps or fake IDs or anything, no calls, no nothing, just grab those bags and disappear. Everybody, even Bethy, got quiet for a while. But then I couldn't keep myself from asking, what about me? They all turned and stared at me. You wouldn't let me know what happened or where you were going? Bubby inhaled slowly, then answered, honey, the Nazis, they took non-Jews too. People who'd been close friends with us. Mrs. Renino added as calmly as she could, they might be coming for you too. That was in 1964. Nathan Leibowitz and I were married in 1977. Bobby died in 1995. Mrs. Renino passed in 2001. But to this day, hidden behind the shoe racks in our closet, both Bethy and I have fully packed overnight bags.
And now we have hymn number 146. Please join Jay and Jessica in singing.
Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile with the wondering weather on that day. Thunder clouds will appear. Wait and see what
Good morning. I'm Eric Alm. Once a month, it is our practice to share our offering for the week with a local nonprofit making a difference in our community. For this month's Share the Plate, I'm happy to introduce you all to Lynn Miller, who heads the Tri-City Urban Forestry Alliance. Hers is a relatively new nonprofit founded in 2019, and with the pandemic starting to lose its grip, they're getting back into action with tree plantings and education that support community beautification, urban reforestry, and mitigating global warming. Now I'm going to let Lynn tell us a little bit more about her organization.
Good morning. My name is Lynn Miller. I've lived in Fremont since 1970. I'm a member of Niles Discovery Church, and we have a green team. And I have started a nonprofit that I want to talk to you about. We, like you, are interested in what we can do as a faith community to address climate change. Thank you for inviting me here to share this morning. Tri-City Urban Forest Alliance, my nonprofit group, does a lot to mitigate climate change. We are a branch of the Tri-City, or we are a branch of Tri-City Ecology Center, and we operate by teaching the many benefits of trees. We are tree advocates. Here's an example of a class we had at the main library on planting and watering trees. We also facilitate neighborhoods to have street trees planted. Have you noticed how trees tend to disappear as our neighborhoods age? So we offer tree planting services to neighborhoods. We work with the city of Fremont too, our new urban forester, Kit Jury, and we help get faith groups, Rotary, Scouts, high school groups, and others to plant trees in public places and parks. We are the go-to organization the city sends groups to who wish to plant trees. They may have the trees, but lack the knowledge and specialized equipment needed to get them planted. We pre-teach before planting day, supply the tools, materials, and coordination needed to have a fun and successful event. Our city was awarded a $1 million plus grant through CAL FIRE. It paid for a tree survey of all the trees in our city, and it also paid for a master plan to be developed. However, it doesn't pay for putting in more than 250 trees. So that's why it's important to have tree stewards make a huge difference to complementing our city maintenance workers in the care and management of trees. TUFA has created a curriculum for an urban forestry program. We look forward to offering it in conjunction with the Fremont Community Services Department. Our role model has been Canopy of Palo Alto. Many cities in the Bay Area have had wonderful urban forestry programs for over 25 years. Fremont's turn is here and now. Another part of CAL FIRE grant involves planting free street trees in an economically disadvantaged Fremont neighborhood with very poor tree canopy. TUFA recognizes societal inequities associated with climate change and green gentrification issues that can arise when offering to plant trees in disadvantaged neighborhoods. We will work with local community leaders, social justice, and housing groups to help plant trees where they are needed most. And lastly, because climate change is an emergency, TUFA desires to get as many trees planted as quickly as possible. We have begun a tree nursery, growing over 400 oak trees at Thule Ponds on Walnut Avenue, thanks to the support of Math Science Nucleus. We grow 8 species of oaks, ones recommended for anticipation of climate change. And we offer them at no cost for habitat and restoration plantings or plantings on private property as 1 to 5 gallon trees. Do you need trees? Margaret Mead said, never doubt what a small group of concerned people can do to change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you so much.
And thank you very much, Lynn. Again, we are sharing our offering this week with TUFA, but all you need to do is provide your weekly offering in the way that works best for you. If you are providing your monthly pledge, please make sure to write pledge on the memo line or your check or online payment. That way we can distinguish the pledges from the regular offering. Thank you very much for your practice of generosity. If you are visiting, of course, please be our guest and let the virtual offering basket pass you by.
During this time of conducting our services completely online, we express our joys and concerns and sorrows by entering them in the Zoom chat. Please direct your joys, concerns, and sorrows to everyone. If someone has just sent a personal message to you, be careful to change that. We now have more beautiful music from the Steele family while we enter our joys and concerns.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. We've no less days to sing God's praise, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we'd first begun.
And here are the joys and concerns that affect our community now. From Kathy Walcave, joy, daughter Sarah and son-in-law Matt arrived from France on April the 26th. It has been a long, long year and so hard to just see regular people. From Rebecca Troxler, dearest ones, I'd asked for an accountant recommendations and saved them, but have misplaced that document. Would you mind reminding me again, please? It's especially helpful if they're familiar with small residential business and divorced child support situations. From Melody Yamaguchi, my son has begun his wildland firefighter season. Please send thoughts of protection and safety. And those seasons are getting more and more difficult. Everyone needs our thoughts. From Ingrid O'Brien, my C-section is scheduled for Wednesday. Please keep me and my family in your thoughts. And a little history from David Lefcourt. My family name was Lefkowitz. My dad, a straight A student, was flunked on the Ohio State Medical Board exams due to an anti-Semitism and discrimination. He fought it and was finally passed. He then served our community for over 50 years as an optometrist. Yay. Oh. And for me, joy, today is the day 49 years ago, Peggy and I first met in Rohnert Park. Nudie was living next door right then.
And you were Paul's roommate.
And I was Paul's roommate. Okay, another joy, from me, I am grateful for the many people who make this service possible, often at the last minute. They're wonderful. From Deborah Livingston, Joanne Landers will be having hip replacement surgery this coming Wednesday. I'm sure she would welcome well-wishing cards. From Michelle, Catherine and I got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine this week. We are very thankful to all the people at the Oakland Coliseum who made our experience a good one. I've been through that one as well for caring for other people. They do a wonderful, if confusing, job. From Anna, big joy, my family members have either already got their first doses or are scheduled soon. Quite a relief. Okay. From Michelle, the battery in our car died yesterday, but our neighbor's brother, the battery technician, got us a battery and installed it cheap. That is wonderful to be living just in the right place. And from Jay, I received my second Moderna vaccine on Friday. So far, doing okay. And from Graham Bell, our boarder got vaccinated and Doug is scheduled soon. IYR, I'm not sure what it means. Soon our home will be back to normal. Whatever normal is, yes, that'll be wonderful. It'll be seriously, when this is all over, our normal will be a new normal. And that is the last of them. And put one stone in for all those in this world who are just having a difficult time. Our thoughts go out to all of them. And hopefully, since service is our prayer, more than thoughts will make it to them. And one last stone for all of those of us for whom the thoughts are too tender or too strong for us to speak at this time. We carry them also in our hearts. Thank you.
Barbara, you're muted.
Thank you for reminding me. I'm reading a homily written by Kathy Bain, who's not able to be here with us this morning to participate. In 2015, two US Census Bureau researchers found that the biggest determinants of household wealth were owning a home and a retirement account. Owning a home allows families to weather economic hardship, pay for education, and pass wealth on to their descendants. Home ownership for African Americans is over 30 percentage points lower than for whites and continues to drop, coinciding with the economic slowdown and with subprime mortgages that targeted to and thus disproportionately impacted Blacks. The value of African American homes is substantially less due to the less desirable areas in which they have been able to buy homes. Years of government-backed denial of quality jobs, redlining, forcing people to live in undesirable areas with high pollution, poor access to fresh food and quality schools, makes it virtually impossible for people now to afford the homes they might have afforded years ago, or to repair the generations of damage to physical and mental health and educational attainment. These living conditions have led Blacks to have higher rates of diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and lower life expectancy. For example, Black children die 5 times more frequently from asthma compared to white children. According to researcher Dr. Joy DeGree, many Blacks suffer from what she calls multi-generational post-traumatic slave syndrome, with feelings of hopelessness, depression, and anger, often directed toward themselves and at other people of color. In addition, the loss of freedom continues in the form of incarceration. Blacks and whites use drugs at approximately the same rate, but Blacks are more likely to be stopped and searched. For the same crime as a white person, Blacks are more likely to be arrested, more likely to be convicted, more likely to be sentenced to incarceration, and more likely to be given harsher sentences. The result is that in 2018, 33% of the prison population were Black, although they were only 12% of the US adult population. Former inmates face multiple fees and barriers to unemployment, education, housing, and social programs, factors that lead to reincarceration. However, prison labor is profitable for some. The value of prison and jail industrial labor output has been estimated at $2 billion per year. Indigenous people have been denied generations of wealth accumulation, largely because of the remote, undesirable areas they were forced to live on when they were removed from their lands. 1 out of every 4 Native Americans lives in poverty. Native Americans have a higher incidence of heart disease, diabetes, renal disease, tuberculosis, and suicide than the white population. In 2017, the Indian Health Service spent over $3,000 a person compared to over $9,000 a person on each person in the national healthcare system. American Indians and Alaska Natives have a life expectancy that is 4.4 years less than the rest of the US population. It is unlikely that we or our ancestors could have chosen the US as our home if not for its land, prosperity, and promise. However, the land, infrastructure, and wealth came at a price. We are all good people. Individually, none of us willingly plays a part in the ongoing damage to Indigenous people or African Americans in this country. However, we have all benefited from the abuse. We live on land stolen from its native inhabitants. We benefit from the generations of forced labor that allowed the rapid accumulation of wealth that helped our country to become and continue to be the richest and most powerful country in the world. Holding ourselves accountable for making small gains in repairing some of the damage done to others should not make us feel uncomfortable or defensive. Rather, it is an opportunity to open our hearts and our minds and widen the circle of concern. Thank you.
Please join in singing. This old world is full of sorrow, full of sickness, weak and sore. If you love your neighbor truly, love will come to you the more. We're all children of one family. We're all brothers, sisters too. If you cherish one another, love and friendship come to you. This old world can be a garden full of fragrance, full of grace. If we love our neighbors truly, we must meet them face to face. It is said now, love thy neighbor, and we know well that it's true. This awesome human labor, true for me as well as you.
And thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee, 7 times 7 years. And the space of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 49 years. Then shalt thou cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. In the day of atonement shall ye make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. And ye shall hallow the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you. And ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family. Ye shall not therefore oppress one another, but thou shalt fear thy God, for I am the Lord your God. The land shall not be sold forever, for the land is mine, for ye are strangers and sojourners with me. And in the land of all your possession ye shall grant a redemption for the land. Leviticus chapter 25, various verses. Thus it came to be that every 50th year all slaves would be released, land would be returned to the original owners, and loans would be forgiven. There later came to be a day of atonement when people would do right by those against whom they had transgressed. It had started out as a ritual cleansing of the tabernacle by Moses' brother Aaron. It eventually developed into that day of the year that was the most solemn. These are 2 parts of the old Bible whereby people were not only required to make good for what they had done to others, but to acknowledge that in fact they had done wrong. Which brings us to the question of reparations, to make people whole again, to restore to full functioning and dignity. If there is any need for someone to understand that we are called as a spiritual duty to make others whole, then this should put an end to the question. For ourselves, we have the values of our covenant. There is the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. We espouse justice, equity, and compassion in all our dealings with others. We believe in peace, liberty, and justice everywhere, including even here at home. And as we are part of the interdependent web of existence, what happens to one of us happens to all of us. What brings us here today is that we cannot simply follow these values at the margins. We must engage wholeheartedly as an entire community, culture, people, society. To be less than transformative is to accomplish less than nothing. Just in case ethics, morality, or spiritual requirement is not enough to move you, then let me suggest some very practical reasons. Not engaging in a complete system of reparations is actually a very expensive proposition. We pay out every day for the consequences of an unequal and unfair world. We pay in so many different ways to maintain the inequality and unfairness, including in taxes that are on a smaller base than might be if we weren't freezing out a large segment of the population from the full realization of their potential. Fear of the other leads us to accept less than is our due, even as we deprive them of life, liberty, and property. I would like now to move on to another reason why a full set of reparations is necessary. I would like to reference from the mental health world the concept of trauma, and more specifically, of historical trauma. Historical trauma is not just some magically still existing mental health thing that has somehow manifested itself decades or centuries after an event. It is a process that has been going on for centuries and in fact affects the entirety of a people. The effects of the trauma, even for the people who do not experience the worst parts, is cumulative and affects the operations of every individual, family, group, and community. It is enough to have been raised by people who experienced the trauma or who had witnessed it. That is the society we have today. It will continue on long after us if we do nothing. Even if, and this is a big if, the traumas were to dramatically disappear overnight, the effects would continue on. Trauma that happens to persons under the age of 18 goes by the name of adverse childhood experiences. Those who have an ACE score of 4 or higher go on to have chronic health conditions, low life potential, and usually an earlier death than necessary. Several weeks back, we saw a video on how the trauma was perpetrated and how the perpetrators adapted to changing times to maintain that trauma. The residual effects are extensive. They include health consequences, short lifespans, reduced access to what health care there is, and a limited capacity to pay for it. The need for health care arises from where people live, often near chemical plants, upwind, from 24-hour-a-day diesel exhaust, in food deserts, far from adequately funded schools, in dangerous jobs, with few protections and without the protections that keep abusers and scammers at bay. Over the span of a lifetime, wealth accumulation is much less, in part because of where they live. African Americans amass less equity in their homes. Retirement, because of the lower quality jobs that are available, does not come anywhere near what the average white person has hope of. Stress accumulates because money worries and because of the knowledge that good things are not just difficult to obtain, but are frequently made impossible. Just general safety is also a level of concern. To leave the house is to enter a world where dangers are around every corner, and to return home is no guarantee of safety. Here is a recent piece in the New York Times by Damon Young entitled, "Racism Makes Me Question Everything. I Got the Vaccine Anyway." Subtitled, "Surviving in an Anti-Black Society Requires Some Personal Negotiations." This was one of them. I don't trust doctors, nurses, physician's assistants, hospitals, emergency rooms, waiting rooms, surgeries, prescriptions, x-rays, MRIs, medical bills, insurance companies, or even the food from the hospital cafeteria. My awareness of the pronounced racial disparities in our healthcare system strips me of any confidence I would have otherwise had in it. As critics of a recent Saturday Night Live skit suggesting that Black people are illogically set against getting vaccinated pointed out, the vaccine hesitancy isn't due to some uniquely Black pathology. It's a direct response to centuries of anecdote, experience, and data. Also, the demographic among the least likely to get a vaccine, white evangelicals. Despite all this, in March, I stood in a long line to receive my first dose of a vaccine to prevent me from becoming seriously ill from a virus that I had no idea even existed 14 months ago. My journey from I don't even eat hospital pizza to voluntary Pfizer guinea pig is complicated, but not singular. Existing in America while Black requires a ceaseless assemblage of negotiations and compromises. Even while recognizing the anti-Blackness embedded in society, participation is still necessary to survive. Damon Young is expressing one of the consequences of historical trauma, the uncertainty of whether to undertake life-saving treatment, that for me was a no-brainer. Today, a problem exists. It isn't going away, and I will suffer if we do not deal with it. People I care about will suffer and have suffered. So what is next? Next brings us back to reparations. The idea is as old as emancipation. First advanced by a Union general to deal with renegade plantation owners for their rebellion by confiscating the land and handing it on to those who actually worked the soil. Needless to say, it was quickly nixed. Currently, there are efforts to investigate the need for and feasibility of reparations for the consequences of our peculiar American history. John Conyers offered the first H.R. 40 in 1989, the Commission to Study Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act. It has been resubmitted every congressional session since then. The current effort is being carried on by Representative Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas. It has never made it to the floor of the House, notwithstanding it is just a study and not actually asking anyone to vote for reparations. In Evanston, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago, the city council has decided to dedicate $10 million over the next 10 years from their cannabis taxes. The money is in the form of housing loans to help purchase or upgrade family homes for African Americans who lived in Evanston since 1919 and experienced discrimination. In Stockton, California, the mayor engaged in an interesting experiment. The city gave out, with no strings attached, $500 a month to 125 of their poorest residents. After a full year of everyone making their own choices, the results are clear. The money was well spent and depended on the choices made by the recipients themselves. Some moved to better housing, others acquired better jobs or improved their nutrition, leading to better health. Everyone had different needs. Handing over cash to those who have little and are stuck in a rut is a sensible policy. Ordinary people can be trusted overwhelmingly to know what is best for themselves. The idea of reparations or something like them is beginning to slowly take hold in the country. We are beginning to see an era in which going big is becoming popular. Both the stimulus bill for COVID and the infrastructure bill have received 70% or more in popularity. Reparations bills that actually achieve something would be much larger than both of them together, and unlike tax reductions, may actually very well pay for themselves. Not only would the reparations ultimately lift people out of poverty, thereby reducing payments from government programs, healthcare expenditures, and increasing tax revenues from people with higher incomes, but it would expand the economy as a whole by their addition and multiplier effect. Reparations cannot be separated from other initiatives out there already. Climate change is going to hit harder than it has already. Those who live in undesirable places will experience greater effects than those who can afford to relocate to pleasanter climes. The Green New Deal will reduce the climate effects on African Americans as well as providing new jobs. Healthcare and how to deliver it is still in flux. A rational system lowers overall costs and reduces downtime in the workforce. A criminal justice system that protects everyone with very low incarceration rates helps everyone. School system that works well for all and poor districts are not penalized for being poor by having their teachers punished or budgets reduced when the opposite is necessary. There is not a single area of life that does not need improving, and that doesn't weigh against African Americans all the more. We could benefit all people by directing the big issues to include the least among us without spending any extra for them particularly. Add on top of that an actual reparations plan that addresses all the effects of racism that are not simply financial, and we might make progress. The monetary effects are easier to ameliorate than the mental health or social effects of centuries of trauma. Hypervigilance does not go away easily, as anyone who has had a bout of PTSD can certify. It will take a large and enduring effort to stop those effects from being passed on to the next generation. Cash payments are important and necessary, but other parts may be more important in the long-term well-being of each individual and each family and each community. I said directed efforts of the big issues. Very difficult, but not possible for them to be otherwise. For comparison, look at the COVID vaccination efforts here in California. It has been understood that African American and Hispanic communities needed to have more outreach and local providers inside the community. That was provided. But white people were able to jump the queue by having greater access to computers, broadband, and transportation. The best laid schemes go off awry. White privilege in action. In spite of the attempted directing of a service, the result was less than spectacular. There must be no allowed way that will stop or interrupt reparation services reaching the intended recipients. Else we must do it all over again. Lest there be any uncertainty, we have many groups who should also qualify for reparations beyond just African Americans. You may have noticed that while I suggested there are things to be done that go beyond simple cash payouts, as was done for the survivors and descendants of the Japanese American internment program, I have been less than specific about what that might be. Let's head back to Evanston. There's been pushback there by some African Americans. While the well-meaning city council did use the term reparations, they did not include the community in designing the program, nor in how it would be run. Stockton shows us that no bureaucracy can know what is best for everyone, and the people involved must be a large part of designing and implementing any program. And so it must be with reparations. Those affected must determine the system. I, myself, nor anyone who looks like me has the appropriate experience. Should we shirk our responsibilities and ignore what is right, or wait for the right time, then the hole will become all the deeper, and success is not assured even now. Yes, there are powerful forces against us. Yes, it is hard. Yes, we have no roadmap, but forward is the only way to go. We shall not be whole within ourselves again until we are whole and restored as a people. And so may it be. And now our closing hymn, number 1012, When I Am Frightened.
Yes. Please sing along. When I am frightened, you reassure me. When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your stories with me? If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. When I am angry, will you still embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me? Stand by me willingly. Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to love. When I am troubled, will you still embrace me? When I am lonely, will you be my friend? Will you be there for me, comfort me tenderly? Will you share some of your feelings with me? If you will show me commitment, then I may learn to love as you do. Then I may learn to love.
Please join with me in reading in unison our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
The words of John F. Kennedy. We go to the moon and do other things not because it is easy, but because it is hard. Now for us, we shall do what is hard because it is right and it is necessary. Amen. And I would like also at this moment to express my thanks to the Anti-Racism and Oppression Committee for the help that they've provided for this service. Thank you.